I'm sure he saw. Wow, yeah.
Hello and welcome to this evening's Board of Education meeting. Will everybody please stand for the pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, just to clarify for people, until the election of the president, I'm going to serve as the temporary chair for the board. At this time, I'd like all four of our members who are going to be starting new terms to stand at this time to take an oath. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I solemnly swear that I support the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of this state.
and the Constitution of this state,
And that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education.
and I will faithfully discharge duties of the office of member of the Board of Education
According to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your service. Would it be possible to get a picture of our four new members? Just do it very quickly, like the front over here, and then maybe the other board members can be right behind. Would be wonderful. Or jump in, however you want to do it. Anybody would like to take pictures of our four together? Would be great. Let's get the elected folks here.
I don't know if you want to do a separate photo or.
Well, let's do one with our floor mill, that'll get everybody. I love to do both. All right. Let's get some of our new folks here.
Who's controlling?
All right. Couple here. All right, thank you. Thank you, Laura. Give us some pictures. Yeah, thank you. I always say that. Okay, next up, we're going to do our roll call. Ms. Ackerman.
Mr. Myers.
Here.
Mrs. Marks. Here. Dr. Krebs. Here. Mr. Storm.
Present.
Mrs. Tierney. Here. Mrs. Urbane. Present. Mr. Stahl.
Present. Okay, thank you. So as I mentioned, I will be presiding during the nomination and the election of the office of president. Nominations will not need a second. However, a motion for a candidate or candidates nominated in order requires a second. A roll call vote will be used as a method of recording the vote. If more than one candidate is nominated, a roll call vote will be taken with each board member stating which candidate he or she supports. At the conclusion of the vote, the president will be seated and conduct the remaining of the election of the officers. At this time, we will accept any nominations for president of the Board of Education.
Ken Sullivan nominated for Roger Myers for president.
Are there any other nominations for president? Okay, would anybody like to make a formal motion to accept Roger Myers as president of the board?
I make a motion to accept Roger Myers as president of the Board of Education.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? We're going to do a roll call vote. Ms. Ackerman?
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Mrs. Marks?
Yes.
Mrs. Myers? Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Storm?
Yes.
Mrs. Urbane?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Stahl?
Yes. All right, congratulations to our Board of Education President, Roger Myers.
All right, we are now at the point where we are going to receive nominations for the vice president. Do we have any nominations?
I would like to nominate Ms. Jennifer Marks for vice president.
Okay. Well, the nomination doesn't require a second. So are there any other nominations? Okay, do we have a motion to appoint Ms. Marks as the vice president of the board?
I would like to make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Tierney, second by Mr. Stahl. Roll call vote, Ms. Ackerman.
Mr. Storm?
No.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Stahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Urbane?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes,
Mrs. Marks? Yes.
that is approved. 6-1, congratulations, Ms. Marks, vice president. All right, that moves us to the secretary position. Do we have any nominations for the position of secretary of the board?
I would like to nominate Katie Tierney for secretary.
Okay, so we have a nomination for Ms. Tierney. Are there any others?
I would like to nominate Dr. Krebs for the position of secretary.
Are there any other nominations? Ms. Tierney?
While I greatly appreciate the nomination for secretary, I would like to respectfully decline the nomination.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other nominations for the office of secretary?
I'd like to nominate Alicia Van.
Okay. Any other nominations for the office of secretary? Okay. Do we have a motion for the consideration of Dr. Krebs and Ms. Urbane for the office of secretary? Do we need a motion and a second? So moved by Mr. Stahl, support by Ms. Tierney. All right. We will need a roll call vote. Ms. Ackerman.
And I think you need to just say who you want to nominate.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Mr. Storm?
Alicia Urban.
Dr. Krebs?
Krebs.
Mrs. Tierney?
Angela Krebs.
Mr. Stahl?
Angela Krebs.
Mrs. Marks? Dr. Krebs? Mr. Myers?
Dr. Krebs.
Ms. Urbane?
Urbane.
Okay, Dr. Krebs, congratulations, you are the office of secretary. All right, that moves us now to the office of the treasurer of the board. Do we have any nominations? I would nominate Mr. Stahl to be the treasurer. Are there any other nominations? Okay, do we have a motion for the consideration of Mr. Stahl as the treasurer of the board? Moved by Dr. Krebs, support by Mr. Storm. All right, Ms. Ackerman, roll call, please.
Ms. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Storm?
Yes.
Ms. Urbane?
Yes.
Mr. Stahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Marks?
Yes.
Dr. Krebs?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes. Congratulations, Mr. Stahl, as the treasurer for the board this year. Okay, that concludes the selection of the officers, moves us into the next portion of our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. We have a motion to approve the agenda as presented. So moved. Support. Moved by Mr. Stahl, supported by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to the call to the public. This is the opportunity for anyone that would like to address the board, the opportunity to do so. Our protocol is to fill out a card at the rear of the room, place it in the box to the left of Dr. Mosher. When I call your name, you will have 3 minutes to address the board. Dr. Krebs will be keeping time. She will give you a yellow card indicating that you have 30 seconds left, and will give you a red card when your time is concluded. So the first card that I have, and I think is the only card that I have, is Mr. Mayor Christopher Tobey. Welcome for joining us. Thank you for joining us in the meeting, and the podium is yours, sir.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Tobey, and I am a sitting city council member of the city of Brighton and the current presiding mayor of the city of Brighton. I just want to take this opportunity to welcome you all. We look forward to a continued long-lasting relationship in working with the Brighton area schools, school superintendent, and all the school board members. So again, welcome on behalf of the city of Brighton. We appreciate all that you do. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. Okay, that closes the call to the public and moves us into the superintendent report, Dr. Alwa.
So a couple things, just very quickly. First off, Happy New Year to everyone. We are back, and this busy month in January, our end of the first semester is going to be coming at the end of next week. So our high school students are going to be taking exams next Thursday and Friday. So everybody is working hard and preparing for those, and then we will be off the second half of the school year. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the administration, we are requesting to have a second meeting this month that's on this agenda for the 27th. What we'd like to do is, Mr. Jones has put together the budget amendment. It's nearly complete at this point, but that we're asking to talk about that on the 27th, and we'll have a detailed report to you on our budget standing and some of the adjustments that have taken place since June last year. So with that, I want to just say, really looking forward to working with the new board. Welcome to our newest members. Welcome back to Mr. Stahl, and welcome back to everybody else. Let's have a great year, and thank you all for your service.
Okay, thank you. That now moves us to the organizational matters portion of our meeting. The first item is the agenda with respect to the organizational matters is the setting of the dates, times, locations of Board of Education meetings. In the packet on page 6, there is a list of the proposed dates for the Board of Education meetings to be held at 7 o'clock in this room. At this time, I would ask if we have a motion to approve the dates, times, locations for the meetings as presented in the packet. So moved by Mr. Stahl, or by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the approval of those dates signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Item B is the depositories, which is we have to designate the deposit, the banks for the depository funds for the Brighton area schools. In the packet, again on page 6, is a list of the proposed banks that would be designated for depository funds. We have a motion to approve as presented. Moved by Dr. Krebs, supported by Ms. Urbane. Any discussion? Mr. Storm.
I remember last year, Roger, when we had discussed this, and I don't recall the specifics. As it relates to this particular item, today, like what are the banks that Brighton area schools works with, and who is the depository or depositories for?
So our main bank is Comerica, that's where we do all of our day-to-day banking. We also have excess funds that we deposit in what's called MI class. Therefore, they are in Comerica funds and MI class has to vote invested, review the figures of the funds there, but on a day-to-day basis, that's what we would do.
So just out of curiosity, is this like one of those state mandated, action items that we have to, vote on? Because it just seems pretty arbitrary, like why would we be able to have, a motion that states, we as a board support American Bank being the depository?
It is a requirement.
So it needs to be.
Yes,
Okay.
it is. And we put the additional banks on here just in case something was to come up, that way we have the authority to work with that without having to go to next year.
Got it, okay. A lot of banks.
Okay, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Moves us to item C, the signatories. The first, there's two different signatories that we have to address. The first, as presented, is that in accordance with the Michigan general school laws for general power school districts, the secretary is authorized to draw and sign orders on the treasurer for all monies to be distributed from the general fund, special revenue funds, all debt retirement funds, building and site agency funds, and further that such order be countersigned by the president of the Board of Education. Do we have a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
By Dr. Krebs,
Support.
support by Ms. Marks. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. The second portion of the signatories aspect of the organizational matter is that the following personnel be designated signatories for the following funds: superintendent of schools and/or assistant superintendent for finance and/or director of accounting, certificates of deposit, savings accounts, all internal accounts, payroll accounts, payable accounts, money market accounts, wire transfer of funds, and automated clearinghouse transfer of funds, and that the athletic director be the designated signatory for athletic officials' entry fee accounts. Do we have a motion to approve as presented? So moved. Moved by Mr. Stahl, support by Mr. Storm. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to the next organizational matter, which is the authorization to transfer funds. As presented, there is a proposed motion that the following employees are authorized to electronically transfer, that is automated clearinghouse, funds subject to the listed limitations. All funds, unlimited authority, the superintendent and assistant superintendent for finance and director of accounting, and all funds with a $3 million limit, assistant superintendent for finance designee. Do we have a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Krebs,
Support.
support by Ms. Tierney. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. The next item is the treasurer bond. The treasurer of the Board of Education is not involved in the handling of money and therefore is not necessary to provide a treasurer bond. Therefore, it is proposed that the following be approved, whereby the authority for money matter rests with school district employees, be it resolved that the Board of Education shall not provide a treasurer bond. Do we have a motion to approve that resolution as presented? So moved. Moved by Mr. Stahl, support by Mr. Storm. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Next item on the organizational matters is the designation of the legal services firm, and as proposed, in the packet is a motion to retain the services of the Troon Law Firm. We have a motion to approve that as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Krebs,
Support.
support by Ms. Marks. Any discussion?
I just have a couple of questions. Do we have a long-term contract or a retainer that comes through a certain amount of time with them?
I do not believe that we have a long-term contract, Mr. Jones,
Not that I know of.
I think we could sunset it at any point, but we have good working relationships with several of the people that True.
Just curious.
Mr. Storm?
Yeah, I just, a question, I think I may have brought this up the last time we had this in front of us. The opportunity to steer the spending to a local legal firm, remind me why that's not in our best interest, because it seems to me as a district, we would try to engage a local law firm versus hire a much larger firm, especially considering the stability of our district relative to policy and process and procedure.
So, this has to do with the specialization within school. And, working with a large firm, whether it's, Troon or Miller Johnson or whatever, they have a whole battery of attorneys that have all kinds of different specialties within school law. Everything from bond counsels to labor attorneys to contract law. They have such a breadth of individuals to have, locally, we don't have anything that would compare, with the services that are provided at such a large level. Is there anybody else that wants to jump in with any other feedback? I think it has to do with the scope of services that these larger firms are able to provide, and the specialization.
Yeah, leaning heavily on my experience in the business world, I acknowledge it's not always an apples and apples comparison, but Roger being an attorney is familiar with K&E, right, Kirkland and Ellis. And many businesses have an engagement with a local legal counsel that would, in the context of this discussion, represent a much smaller firm. And 90% of the day-to-day matters of the business can be handled by their local law firm. And in the instance where you have outlier circumstances that do with certainty bubble up, your local legal counsel would be able to then engage collectively with someone who has a specialty that you need for that particular moment in time. It just seems to me that, just speaking for my tenure on the board, that we kind of just rubber stamp the relationship with Troon at the expense of being able to direct those funds to a local law office who most certainly could engage anyone that needs, that would be able to provide a specialty, type of legal counsel to the parties if it was so needed. So I guess, is it, are we mandated to use Troon, or, I mean, it just seems to me that as a board, we would want to try to steer the funds to a local law office, and we have very, very competent local legal firms in our area that I think would be happy to help the district.
Just from my experience working in school law, it is, the specialty is worth it. I just was asking about the long-term relationship, because what I have found is that legal counsel, when there are large conglomerations, do control a large amount of the school
Right.
boards across the state. And if there's something arise, do we have the opportunity to switch or retain an outside counsel? And as long as we have that opportunity, I'm perfectly comfortable moving forward with Troon. There are a lot of specialties that local counsel, and I've worked with some schools that have tried local counsel, and it just, quite frankly, ends up a hot mess.
Okay. Well, good input. Thank you.
And I would echo what Ms. Urbane said. I think it's also important to understand, for purposes of the organizational matter, we're obligated to designate who our firm is. To Ms. Urbane's point, it doesn't preclude the district from engaging, other firms, local or otherwise, to handle specific tasks, whether it's, if there's a conflict of interest that arises with respect to Troon's representation, or if there's this particular topic like a Title IX or a different firm may be used. So it doesn't prevent us from going in a different direction if we want to engage somebody, a firm, whether it's local or statewide, to handle a particular matter. But for purposes of the organizational matter, we do have to designate who is our legal firm of record, and Troon, at least from my perspective, since we engaged Troon or we've contracted with Troon to handle our policy, it's been a nice fit to have that consistency with the services that they provide with regard to our policy versus in conjunction with the retention as our legal counsel.
And then my last question, how do we market test or ensure that the economic commercial relationship between Red Schools and Troon is fair market value, that we're not getting taken advantage of?
Yeah, so we did that last year. For the same questions arose, there was some outreach by the administration to look at comparative rates of what the various attorneys at Troon were charging us relative to what was out there in the marketplace for similar representation. And, I mean, we were right there in the same market as everybody else. Okay, yeah. Great questions. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. All right, that moves us to the next organizational structure, and that is with regard to, it's been broken down into committees, agendas, and board norms. So as everyone, I think, is aware, we have in the past agreed to maintain standing committees throughout the year. We've also, in the past, in lieu of standing committees, had a committee of the whole meetings and didn't engage with standing committees. So I think one of the first threshold issues that we have to talk about and ultimately decide is, do we want to have standing committees? If so, what standing committees do we want to have structure in place? And, or alternatively, we want to forego standing committees and have a committee of the whole for all of the committee meetings. So that's the first thing. And I'll just, before we do a motion, I think it's prudent for us to just have that conversation. Once we kind of have a consensus, then we can formulate it into a motion. So anyone want to share their thoughts? Smarts?
My preference would be that we have standing committees. I think it works well on a number of different fronts. One, we can share the workload with our colleagues on the board. It's really difficult to dig deep into multiple issues at once. I think if we trust each other, it works much more efficiently. And the second reasoning is, I think it provides more opportunity for community members who have particular interest in certain topics to attend those meetings and make their voices heard and potentially participate in conversation that's difficult to do at a general board meeting. So my preference would be that we do what we've done in the past, where we have standing committees. I'm not committed to necessarily having a certain one, but my suggestion would be academic, like we've done in the past, that we have a finance committee, potentially facilities, something along those lines. And then I think we need a policy committee because we just don't know what's gonna happen. And that's something that as a whole is difficult to take up, I believe, as a group to have those discussions before they're voted on.
Dr. Gross?
I'd like to echo what Ms. Marks has said. I agree with her, and I actually agree with those board committees as a good starting point. We can always add an ad hoc committee if something comes up. We've done that in the past, and I think that's an important tool to have that we have access to. But I think the idea that standing committees can divide the work among the 7 of us is really important. And we can really dig deep into it, and some of our specialties, we can really use that to understand what's happening. So I definitely support the standing committees. Thank you.
Mr. May?
I echo the same statement. I think committee work is important. I think it helps us maybe when we come to the board table, we have a better understanding. And I just would also like to see an ad hoc committee on school nutrition.
Okay. Anybody else share their perspective on committees? I echo what has already been stated with regard to utilizing the standing committee structure versus the committee of the whole. I think they're some very important topics, and heavy lifting can be done at the committee level, and especially with like policy, that's an area I always give a lot of credit to those who are on the policy committees. I know there's a lot of work put in into that, into winnowing down what ultimately has to be discussed at the board level. And I would support an ad hoc committee for school nutrition. So if there's no stop.
Just want to add, I don't know if this changed since last time, but I would imagine if we feel the need for another, it would just come before the board, we just determine at that time.
Yeah.
I can see some of these maybe being too big as one, being a partner or something like that, but otherwise
Okay, so before we have a vote or a motion on the standing committee structure and the ad hoc committee. The policy does, with regard to the committee structure, it does indicate that the board determine the committee's membership, chairperson, purpose, duties, and authority, but the board may delegate authority to the president to determine a committee's membership and a chairperson. Historically, when we've utilized the standing committee structure, the board has designated me to appoint the membership. The way I handle it is I just ask everyone to send me their top 3 priorities of the committees they want to be on, and I do whatever I can to make sure that everyone is on the committee that they want to be on. Obviously, if 6 people want to be on one committee, that I'm not going to be able to do that, but that hasn't happened. So I'm happy to do that again. On the other hand, if the board would like to have a full board discussion on committee membership, I'm fine with that too. I don't have a preference either way. I want everyone to feel involved in that process, whichever way we go. So at this point, what I would suggest is somebody make a motion with regard to the creation of these standing committees, the ad hoc committee, and whether the membership and chairperson is to be decided by the board or designated for me.
Make a motion.
Mr. Stahl, Mr. Stahl?
Motion to have the organization.
Pull it, because sometimes it's hard to hear. Perfect, gotcha.
All right. I make a motion for the organizational structure to form as academic, facilities, ad hoc school, nutrition, policy, and finance committees as it stands today. Sorry. Yes, it is. Yeah. Oh, do you want us to add? And I'll add to that motion that you go ahead and decide by letter format.
Okay.
Mr. Myers.
So the motion by Mr. Stahl, any support? Support by Dr. Krebs, any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. So on that note, I would just ask everyone to send me an email sometime this week, indicating in list in priority which of those committees you would like to serve on, and I will do my best to give everyone their selection. Hopefully, and everyone will want one committee, and we'll be able to populate the committees accordingly. So that would be great. So the next item is the agendas. The agenda process is actually set forth in the board policy 2502. It basically, the agenda is created through with the board president and the superintendent in consultation with the other executive board members. And by the way, even though the executive board was not designated in that motion, it's required under our policy, so we didn't need to actually include that as part of the motion. In any event, the process, I'm paraphrasing, but basically the policy provides that topics that are the subject of a committee level discussion and proposal ultimately they come forward to the agenda as they're reported out of the committee. So if there's going to be an action item that relates to a topic that's been the subject of a particular committee, the committee is responsible for then reporting it out, notifying Dr. Albaugh that this is ready to go to the agenda, and then that's part of the conversation for the executive board for the creation of the agenda. Alternatively, if any board member is looking to add something to the agenda, the request should be made. The executive committee typically will meet on the Tuesday before a scheduled Monday board meeting, and that's when we'll have our discussion regarding the agenda. And so we request that any request for a particular topic to be added to the agenda, even if it's for discussion purposes and not necessarily for a full action item, that it be submitted for that request by Tuesday before the Monday meeting. And so that's set forth in the policy. There really isn't anything that we have to address by way of a motion. I just wanted to kind of go over it, just so that we're all on the same page. The next item is in the organizational structure is what's referred to as the board norms. Given this is the first time that we've had the opportunity with this group to sit as a collective body, I thought it would be a good idea for us to talk about, and I think Dr. Outlaw is gonna add to the screen, a list of board norms that I think are just a helpful norms that we would hopefully all commit to serve as the parameters for our interaction with each other, to make our work here at the board more professional, more collaborative, more efficient. As you will see when it's ultimately on the screen, I think they're all pretty common sense, and
It's like most internet services right now, it takes a little while.
But what I would, but this is just an initial set of norms. Ultimately, what I'd like to do is, it's really more ceremonial than anything, but for us to make a motion that we accept as a board these norms to govern our decorum and our work here on behalf of Brighton area schools. But before we even do that, I would certainly encourage, if there's something up there that is important to anyone that they would like to see added to that list, I certainly would encourage everyone and anyone to do that.
Do you want me to just read them out loud?
I mean, they're all in front of us, but we can't see them, so.
All right, well, so while things are booting up,
You all have them, right?
yeah, we do all have them in front of us. Yeah, just, it was really cool to that in public. So, the 10 suggestions, and these are based on, MASB, Michigan Association of School Board presentations. Number 1 is assume positive intent, for each of the board members. Number 2 is be prepared. 3 is listen to learn. 4 is work as a team. 5 is treat each other with respect. 6 is challenge ideas, not people. 7 is be respectful to people that come before the board. 8, no surprises to each other or the superintendent. 9, represent the district well. And 10, address ethics issues. So those are the 10 norms that MASB has promulgated in the past and encourages boards to follow. Anyone have any comments, discussions, additions? Pardon me?
I think they're all great. There's probably a million more that we could add to it, but this is certainly a great start, and we can manage that, and probably manage the rest. All right.
I just have some question regarding the section. On the meeting agenda, it references the consent at the bottom. Either the board may use a consent agenda to address routine matters. How often do we use a consent agenda? 'Cause I think it's a good idea.
I think that is a good idea. And certainly, we've talked about this in the past, and we've never actually moved forward with it. I would certainly, and thanks actually for pointing that out, Mr. Storm, because I was gonna make a mental note of referencing that, and I just forgot. I think that's a great idea. I think that is something that we should utilize. I fully support it. Does anyone else have any concerns with utilizing a consent agenda as appropriate?
No.
Okay.
I think it would be a lot more efficient.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, well, thanks, Andy, appreciate the suggestion. All right. Are we good? Okay. All right, so that concludes the organizational matters aspect of our agenda and moves us into the for action portion of our agenda. Item A, the minutes of December 9, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Moved by Dr. Krebs,
Support.
or by Ms. Marks. Any discussion?
I have one correction. Under the roll call, President Hitachi and Litchfield. Yes. Because you're admin too.
I read that and I'm like-
Not there, yeah, President and admin.
In spirit.
Yes.
My question would be, can new members vote on this?
Yes.
Yes.
So, but Robert will say yes, if you're not there, you can still vote on it, but it's also appropriate to abstain if you don't want to.
And certainly with respect to, I know it's kind of unique being prior to the actual, becoming a board member. If you're just absent from one of the meetings, it's certainly, not a problem. We've done that in the past, so. Okay, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? All right, that passes 7-0. That moves us to item B, Human Resources Report, Mr. Anastasov.
All right, good evening. So I did just have handed down an updated version of the human resource report, the one that was in the packet, contained 2 individuals for the resignations and retirement. The reason for the update is we just met with Karen Young today and officially brought to this for recommendation of hire for the Hawkins Elementary grade 4 position that was created as a vacancy on January 6th through resignation. So we're looking to move forward with her with a current effective date of January 20th.
Mr. Anastasov, would you be able to just share who was on the committee, what the process was, just briefly?
Yeah, I can go over that. So they still, even though we're mid-year, still ran the entire process. So they had Mr. McCullough, the principal was on it. They had an instructional coach, they had a 4th grade teacher, they had their school counselor, and they had a parent on the interview team. So they actually switched the process a little bit where they actually started with the teaching. So they had 3 candidates come in, they had to teach live in the classroom, and in front of the instructional panel, in front of obviously the class, it would be the class that they would be teaching in, and then depending on how the teaching went, whether they got invited to a more narrow interview afterwards. So not only did that provide an opportunity for them to ask questions or dive deeper into the instruction, but it also allowed Mr. McCullough and the teacher to talk to the students a bit about what they thought as well. He was impressed with the students' comments. So through that, Karen was unanimous. I talked to him about that between the interview panel and the students as well. And then it also includes calling references, going through those, and background procedures, those type of things as well. That's all.
So do we have a motion to approve the Human Resources Report as presented? So moved. Moved by Dr. Krebs, support by Mr. Stahl. Any discussion?
I just wondered if we had just a little background on Ms. Young, if she, recently graduated, coming from another district. I'm just curious.
So she's a graduate of Grand Valley 3 years ago, and so she's been actually in South Lyon teaching for the last 2.5 years, and then with a couple other school districts doing like student teaching and internships and those type of things. But she's in her 3rd year of teaching at this point.
I believe she's a resident of Brighton. She
Yes.
has, has some connections here, which is part of the reason for the move.
Yeah, so that was piqued her interest, is she's been interested in making a move to Brighton, and that's what she was looking at for this. She does have a degree, obviously, in elementary education, but also with a K-8 integrated science as well. And she comes with a bachelor's and a master's.
I mean, just from my standpoint, I think this is a lot better option than doing a long-term sub for the reasons. So I'm happy to see that we were able to go through the process so quickly.
Yeah, correct. I do appreciate it, because that is one important point, is we did look for a hire. We did talk that if we weren't able to find the right person for the position, we were willing to go a long-term sub route. But through this process, we actually did have excellent candidates, even though they were mid-year. So Mr. Hall was for that.
That's great. Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Would like to extend the congratulations to Ms. Nelson in her retirement and wish her all the best. And Ms. Young, welcome to the district. We look forward to having you in a long, successful career here at Brighton Area Schools. All right, that moves us on to item C on the action, the BHS fence. Mr. Jones?
Yes, so the district put out a RFP to remove and replace the fencing that's in between the high school and the residents. It's about 885 feet of fencing. So we put that out in November. We have bid opening on the 19th of December where we received 7 bids. The lowest bid was Action Traffic Maintenance. And we met with them, their project manager, the day after to make sure that, one of the things we're really concerned with is making sure that we use the same type of fencing that are in other areas of the high school, so we are consistent. And they did confirm that it is absolutely what we're doing. So this is our recommendation. Their bid was $40,000, $40,055. They're recommending that the board approve that we can contract them to remove and replace the fence.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the award of the contract to Action Traffic Maintenance for the fence replacement as recommended and presented? So moved by Mr. Stahl,
Second.
support by Ms. Urbane. Any discussion?
I just have a question. Are they going to begin this work during the winter?
Yes.
Due now? Okay,
Yes.
so it'll start essentially once we approve it and they can get going. Are they available?
Yes, they are. In fact, that was one of the things that attracted them because this was kind of their low time of the year. So
Good winter
they were
project.
looking for work, so it helps us.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question, dude. What is IRAM sanctions on the back here, like as a criteria?
It's actually a requirement in an RFP that all bids have to sign an affidavit stating that they have followed the IRA requirement of the RFP.
Remove the fence.
To do anything.
Wow, that's
It
incredible.
doesn't matter what you do.
That's incredible.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That concludes the for action portion of our agenda and moves us into, for future action, item A, school choice 2025-2026. Dr. Alba.
Okay, this is an action item that I'd like to bring in front of the board for January 27th. We would like to open our non-resident enrollment process on February 1st, which is when we would open for our residents as well. What we are proposing is only one change. We know that our elementary schools, particularly in grades 1 through 4, have been very full at our elementary schools over the last few years. So we have done limited enrollment for our non-residents in grades 1 through 4 for the last several years. Last year, we experimented with doing limited for kindergarten. And based on feedback from families, we are going to propose to return to unlimited for kindergarten and junior kindergarten, but to narrow the window of time, so it's 4 months versus being open all the way to August. The reason for this, the reason we're recommending this is twofold. One is kindergarten parents want to enroll right away. They don't want to have to wait until the limited enrollment period, which is only going to be 1 month. By law, that's what a lot of people do for 1 month, which is April. They want to be able to enroll in February so that they know where their kids are going to school. They're anxious to get enrolled. So that was one piece of feedback. And the other was that we may have missed some people because it was only 1 month. This gives us a good 4 months to be able to communicate with this and give people a chance to enroll. The reason we're recommending closing that part of the enrollment process on June 1st is the other feedback we received is that people want to be placed earlier. If we keep it open until August, people cannot be placed until August. That was the feedback that STAR and our enrollment team received last year, that people want to know where their kids are going to be placed. So our goal would be that by June 1st, it would be closed, and that by the end of the month of June, that we would have placed our non-resident kindergarten students. And some may have to be in their second choice. You know, choose a building that's full, mandatory your second choice, they have to be on a wait list, but we will place people. So that is our only big change. We would remain unlimited at 5th grade through 12th grade, of course at the bridge as well. So what questions do you have for me?
What, on the limited 1 through 4, what, do you know the number of slots you're going for?
Yeah, it varies by school and it varies by level. Generally, our Hawkins and Horning have been very full. So we will roll over large classes, so there will not be as much availability in those two buildings. But we have at Hilton and at Spencer, we have space. In one grade, it might be 3, another grade, it might be 7. There is space in all of those grades, it's just not unlimited space.
I would just like to confirm, in district, we get preference on the same way we do with the.
Absolutely.
So when you say the kindergarten is through just 4 months, is the other unlimited extended for longer than the 4 months?
Yes. The recommendation would be that our 5th through 12th grade would go all the way through, I believe it's August 8th. As I think the Friday of that week. So yes, we would be a longer window of time for our 5th through 12th grade. We have plenty of space in all of those buildings. And placement is just different. It's important at kindergarten to know that you're, to get that personal connection, especially when your child's new to the school. Any questions, comments?
All right, moves us to item B, first day of school 2025, Dr. Allo.
Okay, so calendar is obviously it's something that we all want to know. We want to know what the calendar is for next year. But in the state of Michigan, with our labor laws, that has to be negotiated with our teachers. So that'll be done this spring and into the summer. So we will work on the entire schedule collaboratively. But the Board of Education gets to decide what the first day of school is every year. This is your decision. So the county, I know I've had it in some communications, newsletters, and I've done a survey, and I've provided the board with some feedback on that. The county has asked the Brighton area schools and other schools to consider all joining with the start date of August 25th, which would be 1 week earlier than what our typical norm is. Our typical norm is to start the day after Labor Day, which would be September 2nd this year. The county is asking us because of dual enrollment, because of our shared career technical education classes, as well as early college, if we could align our start date closer across the county, that would be better for our students. Currently, this current school year, Fowlerville and Pinckney both start on that August 25th. And the request has been made for us to move forward to August 25th and for Howell and Heartland to consider moving towards August 25th. Each board would have this consideration, but I wanted to relay that that is something that's been asked by the county. So based on feedback, I would not go any earlier than August 25th here. I don't think that would be popular here in Brighton.
I think it'd be great for Livingston County to align. I guess my question is, it sounds like it's still in flux. Is there any way that we can, as a collective Board of Education across the county, get guidance from the respective superintendent on, if in fact the county is willing to commit to that date, and then we could all start on the same day?
Yeah, I think
Is that a possibility, I guess?
I think it's wise. I think Pinckney and Fowlerville already have contracts, so they're starting on the 25th. That's set. But what I would recommend, if the board is going to consider this, is perhaps reaching out to your colleagues at Howell, for example, and perhaps checking in to see if they had a collective commitment to joining there.
Well, I mean, I guess I was kind of referring, the way you presented this is, it sounds like there's some good, healthy dialogue amongst the county superintendents. And so is it a fair question to ask you, are your peers supportive of working towards a common start date, or is there some districts, we don't need to name those districts, who are kind of dragging their feet and maybe not interested in? finding a common date where all of our schools could start on the same day.
No, it's important. I think there's really good dialogue going on. Superintendent Howell and I have had some really good dialogue. I'm not sure that Heartland is going to be moving to this date, but I think the other four, I think if Brighton was going to make the move, I think it would be I don't want to put words in anybody else's mouth, but I know that Howell is having the same conversation that you all will have.
Can I ask you to just maybe clarify, in those survey results, I think there were a number of high school families who were supportive of moving back, but it seemed to be under the belief that that would change our semester end date. And so if we can just clarify what it would take for that to change, because I don't want people to move forward with the misconception that our semester date for 7 through 12 is now going to be before winter break by moving back 4 days.
Yeah, it's very important. Dr. Mosier and I spent some time discussing this, and we have 14 school days after break. So if we move forward, it's only 4 days forward. Unless we are going to be committed to having a first semester that's much shorter than the second semester, we are going to come back after break, and we will have a review week finalizing the semester, and then we would have exams. We actually had dialogue about the quality of exams the week before the holiday break, the Christmas break. That having exams on a Thursday and Friday before break is probably not ideal for students, and people are just so busy at that time. We don't see any disadvantage coming back from break and having time afterwards to review, wrap up the semester, get our students prepared, take your time and do it right. We don't see any way to end before break without having much different length of semesters.
Thank you.
I want to just be clear that we can set the first day of school as the 25th. We get bargained that then we're off until after Labor Day because our collective bargaining agreement doesn't agree to that.
Correct. Right, and we go collectively, when we're at the table as well, we don't just receive the rest of it, we discuss what's best for kids. But I think for parents, I think it's important to know early, at least what the first day, if you want to share what the county holidays are. This is what the county has set for, for the Christmas holiday, this is what they've set. We want to give us parents as much information as we can give them as early as we can give it for planning purposes. But you are correct, it has to be collectively bargained.
All right, I'm just curious, it's got my interest now, but how many students do we have that go to these other districts? And of course, with this time that we're, because are we, is it more about them coming here, or is it pretty evenly dispersed? How does it work?
So I should have brought the numbers, but it's a decently high number. We probably our shared programs, we have a few that go to Pinckney for the welding program. I think it was 4. But more of our shared programs are with Howells. They have the aviation program, the construction trades, and the EMT program. So we have some students that go that way, and then our big ones are health occupations and auto are probably our 2 big ones. But altogether, we have a lot of students that do dual enrollment, and the college semester starts. It is done before the holiday, so that's so it's not aligned with them coming back in January. And then early college is obviously aligned with the college schedule as well, but it's over 100.
So as a follow-up to Mr. Stahl's question, for the students that are enrolled in the dual enrollment program, if their program for the dual enrollment starts before, whether we start on the 25th or the 2nd, are they able to attend classes before the actual Brighton classes begin? Okay,
Yes.
so it wouldn't necessarily affect that group.
I would say our students are probably less affected because they can sign on. It's the students that are going to be taking auto, and it starts on September 2nd, and they're at Heartland, and they started on August 13th. You know, so I think that's where it gets a little challenging.
And I guess, and then so similarly, if our students are enrolled in the aviation, they can go to Howell before whatever date we start.
Correct.
So just to clarify that, you're saying even if we're not in session, our kids can still go there, and vice versa, I would imagine also, right? It was just being, they weren't being bused, they're coming right home.
They're not being bused anyway, that, in my opinion, that's a bigger impediment to some of our students not being able to access these facilities, is that there is no busing, that you have to have your own transportation back and forth, and so that eliminates, you know, you have to have a car or a parent that can drive you.
Be a discussion for later.
I just want to be, and when we do that action, I'll say this again, but I want to be on record by saying, one of the big advantages of starting a week early, or the big disadvantages of starting after Labor Day, is for our AP students. The AP exam is on the same date in the entire country. And so our kids that start September 2nd are losing 3 weeks of instruction behind Heartland, 2 weeks behind Howell, a week behind Pinckney and Fowlerville, and a month behind those schools in the south that start August 1st. And that's something we can change, is at least giving them that additional week of instruction.
Do we know what our scores are in comparison? Have we ever looked at that to see if that, what kind of effect that might be having on our students' success in those classes?
I think in comparison with, I think our students do very well on it, but our comparison group would just be probably local. It would be interesting to see.
Correct,
where
I'm meaning if like comparison to Heartland, for instance, who's starting, 2.5 or 3 weeks almost ahead of
And
our
there's,
AP.
you'd have to look at where they started.
Right.
And where they are now.
Right.
And where our kids are
But
started and where they
specific
are
to
now.
AP classes, you can see how many kids are getting 3s or 4s versus maybe our students are
Actually,
Three,
I've
right?
long thought this is a good PhD research project. Because, and I actually think comparing it to schools in the south, like, okay, when their dates moved, and ours didn't, what did that do to those kids?
I was just gonna caution, remember, every school's a little different, Heartland also has Fridays, half day Fridays. We don't do that, so when you look at instructional minutes, it might be very comparable, I'm not saying like the dates and stuff, but when you look at minutes in front of students with teachers, it can be very similar. So just kind of keep that in mind, everyone sets up their calendar different, but the amount of minutes somebody might be seeing might be different.
And some of the other schools they have several days of kind of like warm up to school. It's like an onboarding days that we don't do here. We get going on the day one. So a lot of it has to do with the quality of what you do with the time that you have. But I think it's a really good point though, especially when you think about something like down south, or in Indiana, where they're starting on August 1st.
Or they're year round.
Or they're year round, exactly. It's interesting.
They are.
But this is a decision, I was not thinking of putting this on for the 27th. I thought this was something that you could all, do your own research and think about. Depending if you feel comfortable, maybe this is a February conversation, but I think it would be fruitful to have some conversation, see where, how in particular might be sitting on this. And then we're available to answer any questions that you might have. Anything that comes up, if you want us to do some analysis or anything, it would be great to be able to tell parents the first day of school sometime next month or so.
Okay. All right, thank you, Dr. Arlock.
Thank you.
That concludes the for future action portion of the agenda. Moves us to the board committee chair reports, community recognition. Dr. Krebs.
So I just want to say, I've said this, I think most of the years, but last Friday was the acapella night at the high school. And I just want to remind you that, again, it was a stellar performance. The 3 acapella groups and the chamber choir performed. High school groups performed, and then they had guests from Michigan State, U of M and Eastern, where they all had alumni students performing, so it was just a really nice musical evening. And I think it's usually the second Friday of January, so I'd encourage you to look at it again next year. I never get to remind you because it's always the timing, it's always before we have this first meeting. But it was, again, another wonderful performance, which really, as a reminder, gets us prepared to think about Anastasia and it's in April. So put that note too.
I'd just like to make a comment, I don't have a recording yet, but, what you just spoke about, every time I go to a sporting event, any other event that we have, I often think, I know we have at least a recording from one of our very talented singers in the national anthem. Instead, we all sit there, and we kind of look around and, they're playing the music and we used to do that. I'd love to see something like that. Maybe we can get Mr. Johnson on board. I'm not sure, but I think we've got some amazing talent. And every time I poll the audience, that sporting events, they do that. They are all like, yeah, why don't we see that? We used to have them come, and I understand everybody's busy now. Everything is a competition, so they can't always be there. Hey, let's record what I'm saying. And we can announce who it is at every game. Just a thought.
I'll support you, Ken. Let's put in a new audio system in the gymnasium so you can actually hear people when you go to the game.
I can double up on you because I actually already called it sitting under one of those speakers and they're on it. Because it does, it distorts even just the announcements, but yeah, I don't know when that happened. I just noticed it this last weekend, but it's bad.
All right, anything further? Okay, well, that concludes all of the items on our agenda this evening. Our next meeting is Monday, January 27, 2025. Thank you for being here this evening, and this meeting is adjourned. I do remember that.